Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Work Comp Talk. My name is Carmen, your host for today's podcast. Unfortunately, we were on a good strike with Bilal being here every episode. This week, he's actually out of town and he's handling some business, and that's totally fine because we can handle this on our own. And joining me today for the podcast is a very special guest, Mark Hawke, who is joining us. Where are you joining us from? It looks really interesting behind you. It says Papa Shop. It looks like a really cool studio.
I'm in my friend's car shop today.
Nice. You know what? It did give me those car shop lowrider vibes. The sign behind you kind of reminds me something I would see from the movie Cars.
There's all
So
kinds of stuff going on over there.
I can imagine. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being here with us. I know that a lot of you guys might be asking yourself, okay, so who's Mark? Why is he there? So we were so lucky to be able to connect with Mark as a client here at Pacific Workers. And he has lived through a lot of similar things as many other injured workers that come to our firm. And he decided to say yes to our invitation to be a guest host here at the podcast. So we are super excited to dive into your story behind workers' comp. But I want to start off first by letting everyone know who Mark Hawke is. What do you do? What do you like to do on your free time? Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark.
Sure. Well, I'd like to start by saying I'm very happy to be here. I know how confusing this process can be because I lived through it, and I lived through it recently. My case just settled out just a few months back. Um, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I was doing and physically what I was like before. And I was a full-time caregiver to a 100% disabled veteran. And I was a live-in caregiver. So because he had some cognitive issues, that meant that I had to be with him all the time in case he fell down, in case he tried to wander off, in case he
Right.
had an accident. It literally was 24-hour hands-on care day and night. And um, during that time, we had other caregivers coming in as well. And so I had some free time to myself, and I took care of myself. I would walk on the bay for 4 or 5 miles. I lifted light weights, and I was not in the best shape of my life, but I was in very good shape. Um,
Right.
Once the accident happened, what happened is he collapsed while having a medical emergency, and I literally lifted him up into the car to get him to the hospital. And after that, you've got your adrenaline going, and I'm otherwise able-bodied. I didn't think much of it. I had aches and pains, and I thought, oh, this is something like a strain or something that'll go away. And it didn't go away.
Right.
So I contacted my employer. Now, I'm sure everybody's case is a little bit different, but I got absolutely no contact from my employer whatsoever. My usual experience with established employers who have insurance is you simply contact them, they fill out the forms, they get you some medical attention. None of that happened with me. So I had to be my own advocate, and I just continued calling them every day, every day, every day. Never got back to me. I finally looked up the employer's insurance, and I called the insurance company directly. Now, unfortunately, that was my experience with the insurance company with getting to care the entire way along the process.
Is
Uh,
this something
I
that you imagined that that's how it worked? Did you, when you got injured, was this something that you thought you were even going to come across as to this first bump on the road in your case?
No, because I worked for a big employer who has insurance. Everything's
Mhm.
above board. It should have just been a very straightforward process. People were on vacation. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to get back to you. There was a delay
Right.
between the person who took my call at the insurance company to get to the insurance adjuster, and it was just a big mess. So I was politely insistent along that whole first leg of the process, and I finally did get to care.
Okay.
What I believed was going to happen in talking with my doctors and beginning to go to the care and getting physical therapy was that I would get better. I
Mhm.
thought that this was going to resolve itself, that I would get out of pain,
Right.
that I would move back into the workforce and everything would be fine. Um, I didn't get better, and we tried different kinds of physical therapy, and
Mhm.
it was so bad that I couldn't even lift some of the 5-pound weights that they were giving me. This is,
So what are some of the symptoms you felt? You were picking up the patient. What is it that you felt on your body that kind of led you to believe, okay, this has to do with what I just did, or it can't be related to my bad mattress or because I slept in the couch, you know?
sure. So the pain was much more severe as time went on, and it never went away. Um,
Okay.
if you strain a muscle, you massage it out, you get some exercise. After a while, you're okay. I wasn't okay.
Mhm.
And then I had weakness, as I'm describing to you, that didn't go away, and that scared me. So
Mhm.
once I got in touch with the adjuster, I explained all of these symptoms to her, and I explained that I'd already gone to her um, medical personnel to begin the
Mhm.
care. And really, I can tend to over explain, and I can be very thorough in explaining what every single detail of my condition and my pain was, and I did that with her. And it
Okay.
seemed to me to be the kind of person that was just shuffling paper. They're just sitting at the desk of their job. I'm just another client. They're filling out boxes, and they just want to move this thing along. And she
Right.
grabbed onto like the least painful symptom that I had and said, "Oh, okay, well, we're just going to make this, a strained shoulder case, and away we go." I sent in paperwork from the doctors, and I would put in yellow, highlight, hey, no, there's all these other symptoms, and
Right.
bottom line it for you, I was ignored, and then ultimately, even with all the evidence from their own doctor saying, yes, he had this strain, yes, he has these symptoms, from their own doctors, they denied the case. So that's when I
Wow.
felt like I was really in a bind.
Right. Of
And
course. I mean, you're sitting here detailing everything, highlighting everything, making sure that all the T's and I's, everything is to perfection. And it's almost like it's just going through them as if you're just another number.
right. And, I've heard of these kind of nightmare cases from friends and whatnot, but experience it yourself. You feel like you're at a dead end. I was
Hmm.
driving down the road and I saw the Pacific Workers ad on the side of the road. And I said,
Oh, that famous billboard.
a great billboard. And I thought, uh, I'm kind of end at my ability to take care of this case any longer. I need to give them a call. And that's how, my relationship with Pacific Workers began.
Okay, cool. So you kind of bumped into a really serious, I guess, road bump when it comes to workers' comp. And it's funny that you said, it's supposed to be easy. However, workers' compensation and the way that the system works is not that easy sometimes. It should be, however, it is not. And you're living proof that for some way, shape, or form in the system, someone either was not doing their job properly or just didn't take the time to listen out, and unfortunately, it happens more often than not. And you actually pushed through and you insisted to continue to make those calls. Other people give up and they're just like, okay, I got denied. Well, that's that. I'm done.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. And, you have to advocate for yourself to a certain point. And I'll say that
Right.
even in regards to when you get representation. I'll get into that in a little bit, but you still have to speak up and you still have to present
Yes.
facts, because without the facts, your attorneys can't represent you properly. Once I
You
got
bet.
Pacific Workers, everything went really smoothly. They had a really smooth intake process. And what was most important to me and happened almost instantaneously, and they paid for it, was Pacific Workers got me to care immediately. They got me to doctors. They got me to chiropractic. They got me the medication that I needed. They got me the physical therapy that I needed. That happened immediately, and that continued all the way through till my case was settled.
That's good. And focus on that recovery. What was it like for you once you started getting treatment? What were the doctors like?
Doctors were fantastic. I couldn't have had a better team of doctors. Um, my case was going to require surgery and all kinds of other treatment. Now, they were able to treat the pain, they were able to give me massage and chiropractic and medication and all the things to help manage the pain and keep me stable until the case settled. But throughout that process, which I believe was about 18 months, um, we started getting other evaluations, MRIs, X-rays, things of that nature. And unfortunately, what we discovered is I had additional injuries that weren't visible without those kind of evaluations. So I'd like to talk about that. It's important to understand as a patient, I'm not a doctor and I'm not an attorney. Uh,
Mhm.
so not only did I listen and follow their advice when they asked me to go to other evaluations, I did that. So it's important to make your appointments, follow up, get whatever evaluations you're being asked to get, because that's the evidence in your case. That's what shows the insurance company, hey, these symptoms and these injuries are real, and here's the medical proof that they're real, and then they have to deal with it. Whereas if you go back to what I said initially, when I called the insurance company, they denied the case. No, nothing to see here. They're just going to wave you on and hope you don't do anything else.
They just gave you Tylenol, say, "Take some Tylenol, you'll be fine."
Yeah, you're just faking it. Um, so as I went through this process of going to the doctor and getting treatment and getting other medical evaluations, we found out that I had a slap tear, which is a tear to where the ball and the bone in the shoulder meet, and that's not going away. That's not something that you can exercise away. And what ended up happening is the insurance company began to cooperate, and they sent a package to the attorney that said, "Okay, well, let's talk about treating the shoulder." And my attorney focused in only on that as well. And when I say be your own advocate, I had a very good relationship with my attorney. If I absolutely positively had to reach her, had to talk to her, that was arranged for me. And there was a point in the case where they said, "Okay, well, we're gonna most likely accept this shoulder injury and start talking about treatment for that." And I had to say, "Wait a second, what we haven't looked at are all these other injuries that are
Right,
related to the same case." And that means, lower back injuries, neck injuries. And they're saying, well, we're going to talk about treating just the shoulder. That's because we've only been evaluated for the shoulder. So let's go ahead and get me an evaluation for my neck, and let's go ahead and get me an evaluation for my back, so we can have a clear picture of what all the injuries are and what kind of treatment that's going to require. So
right.
when I say you need to be your own advocate, I'm not talking about an adversarial relationship. And I can tell you, having been through this process with Pacific workers, they are here to help. They
Mhm.
listen and they want to hear what you have to say. It's important to give them factual information. But if I didn't speak up, I would have never gotten treated for that. You got to
Right,
remember,
and it's
as an injured person, you're going to have to live with all of these injuries. So it
yeah.
behooves you to come forward and explain exactly what those symptoms are, exactly what those injuries are, so that you can get evaluated for it and pass that information on to your attorney.
I mean, ultimately, you're the one that's feeling the pain. You're the one that actually knows what's going on and what doesn't feel right. And until you speak up and say, "Hey, it's all of this," and even then, in your case, you did speak about some of the injuries you had, or some of the just the bothersome that you were having in your body parts. However, once doing the MRIs and diving deeper, they discovered so much more that you wouldn't have been able to even know yourself, because that was not done prior to. So it's important, advocating. I agree. I feel a lot of the times people just assume automatically that everything is going to be added into your workers comp, but attorneys are literally just as clear as can be, as well as doctors. If you say it's your arm, it's your arm. But it's probably your arm, your neck, and you have to be specific. And those little things that you pinpointed obviously helped out for the long term in your case. What was it like once you discovered every situation that was going on in your body, and that I'm assuming the insurance company was still trying to say, no, 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 we're just going to do your shoulder. What was it like after that?
Well, so we had to go. I'm not sure what you call it. Is it a deposition? We had to go to a yeah, it was a
Yeah,
deposition.
yeah.
So the insurance company, asked me questions as well, and my attorney asked me questions and asked witnesses questions, and you know, my case was pretty clear cut. I mean, there was a witness to it. There was no question that the injury happened, and yet they were still fighting it. And after the deposition, when even the attorney was convinced, the attorney for the insurance company was convinced that it was a real injury, the insurance company came back and said, "We're still not going to accept the case." So it was yet another long, drawn out process. And at some point, I had to say, we're just going to go back and forth and round with these folks. Let's go to trial, and let's get the judge to say, and you have that right. Um,
Mhm.
let's get the judge to evaluate all of this evidence. And once they rule that there is an injury and it occurred in the course of employment, then they have to accept liability and start paying for treatment and workers' comp payments and all that kind of stuff. So they can only play games for so long, is what I'm trying to say. And it appeared that they were just delaying, hoping that we were going to go away.
Like you were
And
going to get tired of it, you were going to give up, and then you were just going to let it be what it was.
exactly. And the
Mm.
difference between a settlement for one injury, or the treatment you need for one injury, and the difference you need for three injuries is massive. So we're back to be clear with your attorneys, be clear with your doctors. When I would be examined and the doctor would say, I think I found this other thing that relates to your injury, I would say, please note that in the record, just to
Right.
remind them to make sure you put that in there, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to go by what the doctor writes.
Exactly. And that's why it's also good to have a good relationship with that doctor, and to know that the doctor that is treating you is a doctor you can trust. We've heard cases, unfortunately, for some of the injured workers where, they don't get along with the doctor. And we've always mentioned it, we've always said it. There are doctors that side with the insurance companies more than they do with the injured worker, because that's just the way life is. And they will do little to nothing for the injured worker. There are doctors that are very neutral based, meaning they're not on one side or the other side. They're just there to do their job. And there are doctors who understand, the injuries that are happening and the life-changing moments that will occur to this individual, and they try to listen and be there every step of the way with the patient. In this case, you were lucky enough to find those good doctors.
Carmen, even the insurance company doctor that they sent me to was great, and they documented everything that was wrong with me, and it showed clearly that I was injured, and they
Right.
ignored those reports from even their own doctor.
Good.
So, while we're talking about doctors, um, depending on what the injury is, of course, but in my case, as I said, when I first was injured, I thought, okay, well, I lifted too much, I got a strain, I'm in good shape, I'm going to be okay. And once that didn't go away, and once I couldn't get in touch with the insurance company, I went to my own doctor. And I think that's really important. The sooner and more thoroughly an injury is documented, the better it is. The better it is for your case, because if it's not on paper, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah, document, document, document. That's like the number one rule that Pacific Workers always tells the injured workers. Make sure everything is in writing and have as much information as you can on hand.
What else would you like to talk about, Carmen?
There is so much we can dive into as far as like the whole process. What was your life like when you were going through this process? Obviously you weren't able to do the things you used to do. How much did that affect your life?
Yeah, it was really a little bit depressing. Um, I used to see people that, otherwise look like me. We look normal, and they would talk about having injuries, or people that I knew that, that were fully functional, and then they got an injury. And I used to think about these people, come on, just do some yoga and, tough it up and do better.
And now that you went through the experience, you were like, "I'm sorry, I take that all back."
I have a whole new respect for people with chronic pain. It feels like, some percentage of your personhood has been taken away because some part of you is always dealing with this constant pain. So that was number one. I mean, it just flat out hurt. The other thing that began to concern me is, okay, well, I'm not exactly retirement age here. What's going to happen to me moving forward? What kind of work can I do? Um,
Mhm.
how am I going to recover from this and, be a whole person again? So, it's all those kind of worries and concerns when you're injured like this. You're probably sitting alone, taking it easy. Uh, and that's a very lonely place to be. And quite frankly, when I reached out to Pacific Workers, and then I suddenly had a whole team on my side, like this whole worry was lifted off of my shoulders that they were going to take care of the actual legal case, and I didn't have to worry about that anymore. So
It's a lot.
that was a huge relief. And then as I, the bottom line is it's a long process, and you have to be able to remain consistent throughout the process and not give up and not give in and follow the advice of your attorneys. But, you know, if I would have just said, oh, you know what, I don't care, I've had enough of this, I'm tired of it all, I would not have been in as good a shape as I am now, uh, after the fact. And
Mhm.
it's very difficult not knowing what your future is going to be like, how your case is going to be resolved, what your work future is going to be like. And so, my advice is reach out to people. I'm sure that's why you have this podcast. Reach out to the people around you that can help.
So that's one of the reasons why we have the podcast. The other reason is just to shed light, and more importantly, like we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, is to let other people know that they're not the only ones going through it or that went through it. There are many other people that are going through the same similar situation, some even worse. However, it's a very stressful situation for injured workers to have to figure out how and what's going to happen with their next paycheck. Where is the money going to come from? What is their life going to be like? What is their next job going to be like? It's an added stress on top of your injury, and your injury and your pain that you're already going through. So the fact that you touched base on all of the questions that I had for you, like, were you ever thinking about quitting halfway through the case? Was this something that came through your mind? What made you continue to keep wanting to fight? Because there's a lot of people that just straight up give up.
It seems very personal, and it is, an injury is very personal, right? It's happening to you. But as you're going through this process and you get denied by the insurance company, or you have a doctor that doesn't agree with you, or things just don't go 100% your way, it seems very, very personal, and it's difficult to remain mm, professionally removed from the facts of
Mhm.
your case, and just push it forward. And that's why your attorneys are here to help you. um, and listen, if I didn't have a good case, or if there was a problem with my case, or was a problem with some part of my case, Civic Workers staff would have told me.
Yeah.
They were very upfront with me the whole way, and I was very upfront with them, and I followed up with everything that they asked me to follow up with. And although it is personal, you have to, and it's hard to do this, but put it into others' hands to help you, to sustain you through your case, because it is a long process. Um, when you're legitimately injured and you're in pain, and you've got the insurance company tell you, no, this isn't, has nothing to do with us, and or you're not injured. Um, Psychologically, that can play games with you, and that can sap you of your energy, in
Yeah.
addition to you're dealing with this chronic pain or whatever the injury is.
Right.
So get help, and this is what Pacific Workers does. I got to tell you, I'm speaking very highly of Pacific Workers. I can't say good things about people that I don't believe in. I wouldn't even be here had I not gone through the process with Pacific Workers, have I not experienced the professionalism, the stick to itiveness, the follow up that I've gotten from your practice. And, even if things hadn't turned out exactly the way that we thought they should, I'd still be here, because they still professionally did everything that they were supposed to do to carry my case forward. And your lawyers aren't going to decide your case for you. The judge is going to decide your case if it gets that far, and you have a great deal of control what to do. At the end of the day, treatment options, settlement options, it's all left up to you. So you're not relinquishing control to anybody else. What you're doing here is getting help.
It's like a guide that's just walking along with you, making sure you're taking that right step and that right decision. And it's good that you view it that way. I'm excited that you're sharing your story. How long did your case go for?
I think it went for 18 months. I
Is
think
it
it
what you were expecting?
No. Once we had gone to the deposition, the attorney for the insurance company came back and said, and I think this is rare, but he came back and told my attorney, I'm going to recommend that they accept this case. Because even he believed, he saw and read the writing on the wall, saw the evidence, heard the testimony of the witnesses, and even he saw this is a legitimate case. I'm going to recommend they accept it. And he did that, and they still denied the case, and we had to continue forward. So after that point, we had to go to back and forth to court 2 or 3 times, and it was clear at that point that they were just playing games, that they were just dragging it out, hoping that I would quit, resign the case. And, I'd made it clear from my attorney that, listen, I know this is a long haul. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And so you can impart that to the defense attorney, that as long as this takes, we're going to be here. And there is a stopgap to that. They can only play games for so long before it's forced to trial. And so my attorney went to them and said, okay, we've gone to conference many times, and even you wanted to accept the case, but that's not happening. So let's go ahead and go to trial. Let's present the evidence to the judge. So there is a stopgap measure to where your case isn't going to go on, forever and ever and ever. But you do have to have the stick-to-itiveness to at least carry it to that point.
Right. Just take it, day by day, and just hope that once it gets to that point, that there is an action going to be taken after it. What happens when you go to trial? What did the judge say?
The judge saw the writing on the wall as well, and basically told the attorneys, "Listen, don't don't waste my time. Settle this case." And so she just kept kicking it back, um, to the point where they actually started talking settlement numbers. And I would like to talk about this. They initially offered me a very, very small amount of money, and they were confining it to the shoulder.
Mm.
And so that's when we got more evaluations, neck, back, and we presented all these other injuries. So it was clear to them that if they didn't settle the case, that this was the kind of case and treatment that was going to go on and on and on for them, because the judge most likely was going to rule in our favor if we went to trial. So we never actually had to go to trial. I wasn't afraid to go to trial. Um, I mean, it was as black and white a case as you could have. Witness. I went to my own doctor, so there was early treatment. They drug their feet in even giving me the workers' comp paperwork to fill out for my employer. Um, I did all the due diligence I had to do to get in touch with the insurance company, and it should have been the other way around. They should have gotten in touch with me as the injured worker. That never happened. They simply
Yeah.
took the case out of hand, and so as it went on and on and on, like everybody saw the writing on the wall. The judge had spoken to both attorneys, and that's when the real settlement discussions began. Point is, had we not had all those other evaluations that showed the totality of my injuries, we never would have gotten the kind of settlement that we did. And quite frankly, you know, I still have to live with these injuries, and it's been a big change in life for me.
Right.
Um, there are times when I feel, there's good days and bad days, and this might sound like an exaggeration. This is with my uninjured hand, but there are times that I have problems picking up a coffee cup with my left arm, and there's other days when it's much, much, much better.
Wow.
But it shocks me at how weakened I've become in that arm. It's a serious thing, and that's something that you have to decide for yourself when you get to the point. If they're talking a settlement, you have to remember, if you take a settlement as opposed to treatment, you're going to have to live with those injuries.
Right. They're not going to disappear just because you got that settlement.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're going to most of the time are going to be there with you for the rest of your life. And then you have to learn to kind of live life with it. What is it like for you now? Did you go back to work? Did you seek out other options? Where are you at now in life?
Sure. So COVID really shut down everything, as we know, and
Oh, COVID.
good old COVID. Uh, So, I have employment options that are available to me. Luckily, because we've gone through this process, I have the option of when and where to take that employment. So I'm okay. Let's start with the pain. The pain and the injuries. It's day by day. Some days I wake up, I feel like top dog, and other days I wake up and I feel like the fire hydrant. I'm still on medication. That helps manage the pain. But usually that's at night when the day is done, and I do what I can, and I try not to overexert myself. I try not to expect more out of myself than I can actually do. Um, I've always been a saver in life, so I'm doing okay for now. Uh, but I may take employment moving forward. I was like I said, a live-in caregiver for a veteran, and in working with him, I was able to develop this whole other expertise as a patient advocate. So I really know the ins and outs of the
Nice.
Veteran Administration and how to get them from zero to benefits. And I did that on a charity basis for about 7 other veterans while I was taking care of the gentleman I was taking care of, and got them to benefits. So if I need that as a fallback position, I can go be a patient advocate without any problem whatsoever.
It's good that you see it that way and that you have that option as well. Do you think it would have been obviously it would have. How much more different do you think your situation and your injury and your whole workers' compensation case had you not hired an attorney?
I doubt that we'd even be finished with the case by now. I personally studied up on workers' compensation, and there's some interesting things about workers' compensation law. Now, I'm not an attorney, but the whole reason for the workers' compensation law is so that uh, you know workers aren't suing their employers, employers aren't suing and denying their workers. It gives this whole other venue to resolve these kind of cases, and there's a whole different process to resolve these kind of cases, which is why the judges in workers' comp cases exist. It's why your firm exists. to make it smoother and easier. The whole point of workers' comp is that the worker be made whole, that he recovers from his injuries, and that he gets back to work. And so, what is the process to get them from injured to whole again? So I got to learn, all of those kind of things. And, of course, sometimes the injuries are so grave that that's never going to happen. So, I
Yeah.
probably would have, just knowing me, had I not, I was pat myself on the back, smart enough to get help almost immediately. But had I not done that, I probably would have gone a couple of rounds with the insurance company and sending a flurry of paperwork back and forth. I'm smart enough uh, to learn what the correspondence has to be. But I'm telling you right now, given their stance from the beginning of the injury, even with their own doctors, they would have continued to deny my case. Had I not got you when I got you, I think I would have gotten you 2 or 3 months down the road.
That's insane. It's crazy. I mean, it's coming from someone who's been in the system, someone who has lived the whole story. And it's unfortunate. And it's also an eye opener for other people that are probably struggling with similar situation as yours to know that you're not alone. You don't have to fight this battle by yourself. There are professionals out there that can help you, that have studied this, that know this from the palm of their hand. And, there's just options. And we hope that if someone's listening to the podcast now and they're listening to your story, Mark, that this also resonates with them and helps them kind of figure out where they're going to move next, and what they're going to do if it in fact they don't have an attorney, if they're going to hire one. It's never too late to get that advocacy from someone else and get that legal expert help. And it's unfortunate because, again, it was clearly written in the wall for you in your case, and even then things still happened for whatever reason or for whoever reason.
This drug on for quite a long period of time. And Carmen, you brought something up. You're not alone. There's professionals out there that can help you. Here's something else. The call doesn't cost you anything. It costs you nothing to call in and talk with somebody and tell them about your case. There's it costs nothing. And you know what? If at the end of the phone call you're not convinced that these folks should represent you, you're free to go and find another attorney. Um, but at least
Yeah.
get an evaluation. It doesn't cost anything to get your case evaluated. Something else that I learned is these cases are taken on a contingency basis. And I don't remember the percentage. Is it 18%? Your lawyer is only going to get paid so much out of your case. And that is in law. So
In California, you can't get paid more than 15%. That is the cap. Like, if someone does try to take more than 15%,
right.
then you definitely want to get a second opinion.
So your attorneys just can't make it up as they go along. I mean, every workers' comp attorney is going to get paid the same percentage. I would really recommend to people that they at least, make the phone call, listen to the advice, have their case evaluated, and then they're going to know where you stand. I mean, the difference between before the phone call and after the phone call is you're going to know whether you have a case or not, and you're going to know whether you can get representation or not.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm glad you said the fact that the call is free. Again, there are many people that think that, okay, if I'm going to hire an attorney, I have to pay out of pocket. And as you mentioned earlier, it is a contingency fee, meaning if you don't have a case and if your case does not win, the attorney will not charge. The attorney will not make money. If you make money, the attorney will make money. So it's almost like you have that team on your side to be able to walk you through this, and you don't have to do it alone. So I'm
Exactly.
glad we had you on the podcast, Mark. Is there
I'm so happy
anything
to be here,
else
Carmen.
you would like to share?
I really think we covered it all. I don't work for Pacific Workers. I'm one of their previous clients. They got in contact with me 4 or 5 months after my case had settled. I hadn't spoken to anyone at the office, and I'm telling you, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I hired you folks, um, and mainly because of that open communication. Someone was always available via email, or if I had to call one of the support staff members or even leave a message, it just was never a problem. And although the case moved slowly, it always moved forward. So I'm very grateful for the hard work that everybody did, and I'm happy to be here. I hope this is helpful to other people out there who have been injured and maybe are, on the fence as to whether they should call in or not. Call in, get some help.
Mark, you're so funny. You say you do not work for Pacific Workers. At this point, I think we should just hire you. You're doing so great.
Send
Thank
me
you
a
so
job
much for sharing
application.
this story with us and for letting us into your life.
Good to see you, Carmen.
At this point, I'm like, you can switch jobs. Like, I'll just move out of the way and you can just take over this podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. And we hope to catch you guys on the next episode of Work Comp Talk. Follow us everywhere on social media. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so you get that notification every time we have a new story for you. Mark, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank
We
you.
hope that you have a great long weekend, and we hope that you don't have to use our services anytime soon. But if you ever do, here we are to help out.
Bye, Carmen.